All right,
Oh,
we're on.
okay, we're on, except I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Concentration, concentration. Do you know
Concentration.
this game? It's a game actually called Concentration, Concentration. I
No.
learned from my boyfriend last summer, and it's when you're in a group of people and someone says, wait, how did it work again? I think someone says a theme, like for example, animals, and you have to, you're in a certain order in a circle, and everyone needs to say an animal, or like for example, an animal starting with an R or something, let's say, and then people who get lost or not fast enough, I think they're out then. Or how did it work? Or you have to start again every time, or it would be just like this game where you have to be hyper concentrated to be super fast to come up with an answer, and it's called
Mm.
concentration, concentration.
And that is a Flemish game? No?
I don't know. He's from Nigeria, but it seems like
Mm.
other people in the group knew the game. It's just I didn't know it. So I
Ah.
think it's a universal thing. I think it's a game a lot of people know.
Mm.
I mean, they do. I mean, in my experience, they do play it with kids, where you say, like, people when you're in a car with kids, you say a letter, and then they have to come up with an animal starting with that letter.
Mm. Mhm.
But this was, I don't. I'm just. It's really typically me to forget the clue of the story, to be like, I remember the
Mm.
context and I remember the feeling, but I'm like, what was the trick of this game again? But I think it was just, it's being very specific, like asking for something really specific, and then people had to be very fast to come up with an answer. So you have to be hyper concentrated to reply.
Mm. Mm. It's actually that seemed like a really good exercise and a helpful way for us during this time that um, that because I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes it's really scattered and there's things that at the peripheral that I wish I have the time and the concentration actually to grasp and pull something in, and I have to be very assertive to remind myself that I need to do that rather than kind of constantly checking the news or do when is like my turn to take the vaccine, will there even be anything available, my for my parents, when are they going to get vaccinated, they're in their 80s, so there's that kind of challenge to be focused in as a practice. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
so
been
I guess
super
that's kind of
confusing, I feel,
mm,
because it seems like a lot of the input, like in Flemish or in Dutch, you say prikkels. It means things that sting you or that touch you. You know,
mm,
things that enter your bubble. Let's
mm,
say. It
mhm,
seems we have so much less of it because
mm,
we're so much less exposed to people, to the world, to activities, to outside. But I too feel super scattered. I feel like it's even harder to keep things together or to keep a focus or to be concentrated, because I think maybe there was also more of a push of daily life, where you just had to be faster or had to do more, or like the rhythm just changed, but the work, it doesn't feel like the work is any less at all.
no.
And that's so confusing, because I'm like,
Mhm,
obviously
mhm,
I'm doing less because I used to travel constantly and do much more different kind of work.
mhm.
So obvious, in theory it's less, but in reality it still feels like every day ends with a long to-do list that hasn't been finished.
Yeah. Do you feel that is it um the, the lack of the physical movement, but then the requirement for concentration for the task that's at hand, that it doesn't change or is actually add more because of the emotional and the mental requirement?
I don't know, but I really feel like I feel it almost like an image of my mind, where my mind, because of the lack of movement, feels like stagnant water where dirt is just sinking to the bottom, and you feel like some, you know, you need to shake it up or something to bring up those weird clouds of dirt that turn into shapes and figures and ideas. And also I feel like I kept on comparing it to kind of a dried out raisin or something. I feel my brain is just like shrunk and just like as if it's not getting enough water also, and not getting, like, it's thirsty. I feel thirsty and hungry in my mind, and at the same time still very tired and occupied. Yeah.
Wow, that's really apt metaphor, actually. Yeah, so I think that's really dead on of describing the conditions that we're facing now, that we're hungry for input or inspiration, but there's also exhaustion. So you can feel the emptiness in certain kind of space in your mind and your and person, and yet you're so, it sounds like we're so tired. The exhaustion also requires that kind of different kind of time. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's what you also, it's like the rejuvenation you spoke about, the life, the feeling alive, the feeling, the also getting energy back by giving it, by like exchanging energy with people live in the physical, and having things, like, I've always been very inspired simply by, even if I wouldn't document, I in my photography choose specific subjects. So I'm not someone who carries around the camera and I'm just taking pictures, but you do take in life around you and colors and shapes and things that happen. And yeah, of course that is much less, but that, at the other hand, I expected it would maybe create more of a blank canvas where you can go to a kind of core of own ideas or images, rather than, because of being less exposed to other input or outside energies. It's very contradictory, I feel, the experience, right? It's the push and pull of those two opposites, of like things you didn't expect, and yeah, for sure, like an extreme exhaustion that was released first, I think, when we first entered this kind of lockdown life, and then that continuously keeps on surprising me, like how much less physical movement you do, but how much more exhaustion there is than I would expect. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because, during the lockdown, I was just in one room and constantly going from meetings to meetings to going to meetings, or, go then to meetings. And even though there's, 5 minutes break, 10 minutes break, an hour break, it is at the end of the day, I was mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted. And the physical exhaustion was really bewildering, because all I did was just stay in one room, right? Physically in one room. And I didn't have to move more than 3 feet, even though I forced myself to sit up and stand up and move around. It was intense. I guess I wonder, I mean, have you found a way for yourself? What would now be a way for you to reconnect or find a certain kind of way, that in a new way, maybe to energize without the connection to people that's in this.
Ideally it would be through creating something again, or finding that space, hopefully here in this project together, of creating something to be excited about, something that is not restrained or stressful, right? Just being like, okay, I'm part of this now, let's take this space to do something I really wanted to do for a long time, or I couldn't find the space for, that can make you excited again about something. Yeah, like trying to channel that inner energy through something you create. But on the other hand, like, I just, now these past days I've been working on text, which was something that I felt a lot of resistance towards, although I've been saying for years, like, I wish I would have the time again to read. I used to love reading, but I really had to pick myself up like every hour, force myself to go back to those texts. I would constantly look to distract myself, like to do everything else but work through the text. I must say also, those were academic texts, like research. So it's also not the easiest lecture, but still, I mean, the easiest kind of text. But I was still really surprised. I'm like, whoa, yeah. And in that, the concentration comes in. Like, it was so hard to find that concentration, or to be like, to force myself to take the space to only work on that text. And shut down everything else and be like, I'm now taking that time. I'm not going to do emailing. This is what I need to finish, and I'm going to do only that, which seems like a privilege, because usually I have to do so many things at the same time. You're just being pushed and pulled and scattered. But it was hard.
It was hard, but then what happened? How do you feel right after that?
I'm going to finish after this call.
Great.
No, I'm almost there. It's coming. I think it will be nice. I mean, I feel like this year is a year of cleanup, of losing baggage, of creating space. I just never thought the process would take so long, because it felt like for a lot of people, COVID hit and the space was there. They're like baking cakes, reading books, doing all the things they dreamt of doing. And me, I'm like, I want to start baking cakes still. It's like 1 year post-COVID. It's like March 2021, and I still want to get to baking that cake.